A carbon border adjustment mechanism, CBAM, also known as a carbon border adjustment tax, or CBAT, is a fee or tariff levied on imported goods based on the greenhouse gases emitted during their production. Such a policy can serve multiple purposes, like reducing emissions to restrain climate change, preventing distortions between countries with differing emission standards, and spurring domestic industries. CBAM could help the European Union and other countries achieve their global climate policy ambitions, make domestic industries more competitive, and bolster trade relationships with like-minded allies and partners. This lecture explains how working and implementation of CBAM. The goal of a CBAM is to help reduce emissions that contribute to global warming and to encourage cleaner production processes around the world. Goods made in countries with less stringent emission standards are cheaper to produce but result in higher greenhouse gas emissions. This gives firms an incentive to move production and pollution to countries with lower standards and gives producers in those countries a cost advantage over producers in countries with more aggressive climate change standards. That cost is compared to the cost of carbon that domestic producers pay to make the same good. If the foreign producer paid a lower cost per unit of emissions than the domestic producer, the CBAM tariff is the difference. In practice, the comparison is complicated. The government must then determine who it will tax and how much, and set prices for emissions from abroad and how to levy CBAM taxes on products. However, export rebates may violate World Trade Organization, WTO, rules against subsidies. A carbon price tries to capture the adverse externality of greenhouse gas emissions, the indirect cost of emitting greenhouse gases borne by the public, by pricing carbon within an economy or region. It is usually paired with carbon price. Political pressures may limit the scope of the CBAM. By targeting industrial manufacturing and ignoring high-polluting industries such as transport and agriculture, the EU's CBAM may be insufficient to reach the EU's climate goals. Implementation could be delayed. As of March 2024, only 10% of firms in Germany and 11% in Sweden have reported their emissions as required in the EU. The EU intends to implement its CBAM in 2 phases. Phase 1 focuses implementation in cement, fertilizers, electricity production, and alloy-producing industries. Second phase starting in year 2026, the more industries will be asked to report carbon emissions. The CBAM has been estimated to bring in €7.2 billion annually for the EU. The European Union adopted a CBAM in October 2023 to put a fair price on the carbon emitted during the production of carbon-intensive goods that are entering the EU and to encourage cleaner industrial production in non-EU countries. The CBAM is part of a suite of climate policies complementing an ETS as the EU aims to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. Many low-income countries contend that Western countries became wealthy by burning fossil fuels, are responsible for the bulk of historical global emissions, and have spent decades financing and promoting fossil fuel development and outsourcing pollution to emerging markets. On the other hand, they argue that least developed countries, LDCs, want to grow, emit small amounts of greenhouse gases compared to their richer counterparts, lack the institutional capacity to monitor emissions or invest in green technology, and expect to bear the brunt of climate change. The EU says it wants to help LDCs with the green transition and provide technical support for complying with the CBAM. CBAMs could cause trade wars, or be hard to coordinate. This could undermine the global fight against climate change and slow the green energy transition. Important web links related to Technology Education and Mentoring Center are flashed on the screen.